Hello, with me today I have Sven Borho, co-manager of the Worldwide Healthcare Trust. I mean, there are a couple of companies that really stand out looking at the latest fact sheet, Mirati Therapeutics and Horizon, and they're now in your top 10 holdings following a big surge in the share price over the past few months. Could you tell us just a little bit about the companies, both of them, and why you bought them?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. They're both great examples of our core strategy on how to create alpha over our benchmark because both stocks are not part of the benchmark. So if we are right about them, they will add tremendously to the fund outperforming the benchmark. And these are smaller mid-cap names. Mirati is a $5 billion single product biotechnology company. It's unprofitable, and Horizon is actually a spec pharma company, a sector which had been very, very under pressure for a number of years. This is the fastest growing spec pharma company probably out there. So what are the investment themes behind each name? Well, Mirati is leading the race of the next transformative cancer drug target, KRAS inhibition. They're leading the race. They're in a race with Amgen there. We believe that that drug category, KRAS inhibitors, has the potential to become really next big blockbuster drug category in the oncology space. If Mirati and Amgen are successful, this will be a multi-billion-dollar drug category. Now, the company, they reported already phase 1/2 clinical trial data late last year and was very promising. And we are going to get later this year phase 2 data in a registration quality clinical trial in second-line non-small cell lung cancer. If that trial later this year is successful, the company can actually file for regulatory approval after the phase 2 clinical trials and could be on the market in the not too distant future. And the ultimate theme there, if they are successful with that, I think Mirati will get acquired by one of the large players in the oncology field. So a large pharma company is most likely going to take out Mirati. So there we expect very, very big news here later this year. It could be volatile. It will be up or down, but we think it's going to be a significant upwards move in Mirati. Now, Horizon is a company which really reinvented themselves. They have a big legacy business of like primary care inflammation drugs. But in this period of 2015 to 2017, they acquired a number of companies. And from those acquisitions, they got two brand new drugs. One is called Krystexxa, which is for uncontrolled gout. And the other one is Tepezza, which is for active thyroid disease. And this drug just got recently launched here in the first quarter of the year. And these two drugs are very transformative drugs for Horizon. And they're going to re-accelerate the top-line growth rate of Horizons to well over 20%. And then they will have very, very fast bottom-line growth rate based on the success of those two drugs. And for example, like Tepezza, the eye disease drug, the first guidance actually was $30 to $40 million in first-year sales. This is in 2021. It's off for an incredible start, and they had to actually increase guidance from $30 million to $200 million. And this is despite COVID-19. So that gives you an indication of how powerful these two new drug launches are and how transformative they are for a medium-sized company like Horizon Therapeutics. So these are perfect examples of names where we think these are going to be the growth drivers for the trust in the next 12 months.
Okay, for a lot of stocks, I guess that the professionals and the private investors buy, there'll always be an exit strategy. There'll be sort of if they do this, then I'll sell. These are my sort of objectives, investment objectives. But in your portfolio, are there any so-called one decision stocks, the type of company that you can't ever imagine selling?
Well, the healthcare sector is a little bit different from some of the other sectors. So we do not have the equivalent of the FANG stocks in the technology space. So inside healthcare, There's no Apple or Amazon must-own stocks which you have to own for a very, very long period. But we do have some long-term holdings with really secular investment themes, which would probably qualify for, as such, one decision stocks. One such example is another 3% holding inside the fund, Vertex Pharmaceuticals. It's a biotechnology company which just launched a transformative cystic fibrosis drug, Trikafta. It's a major blockbuster drug. In the first year of sales, it will be multi-billion dollars, and this will turn into a $10 billion cystic fibrosis franchise. And this is pretty much like a one decision stocks. You want to be in these big new blockbuster drug stories, and Vertex is probably a name that will continue to hold a while. Another good example of a similar stock is a large cap name in the medtech space, Boston Scientific. They are the category leader in interventional cardiology. But really, the reason why you want to be invested in Boston Scientific and why we have been invested since probably 2012 is that they're the best run company in the medtech space. This is really a bet on the management team around Mike Mahoney, who came on board in the 2010-2011 time horizon. And he has created a tremendous turnaround story where you get solid internal growth rate from the existing portfolio and the R&D pipeline, plus you get margin improvement through operational improvement, plus they're doing a lot of smart acquisitions to augment their top-line revenue growth rate. And that's another name which I can't foresee to selling anytime soon. And I mentioned before, we actually added to Boston Scientific here during the sell-off during the month of March.
Okay, Sven, outside of the current pandemic, I'd just like to see what you believe are the major trends in global healthcare, or will be over the next few years.
Well, there are a number of, I think, big secular themes, and probably the most important near-term theme is the presidential election in November. And the market in general has gotten a little bit worried about a Democratic sweep, so that we not only get Joe Biden as our next president, but that the Democrats will sweep the Senate and the House, and they will be in full control of Congress. And this has created a tremendous dislocation actually inside the healthcare space. The healthcare space in general is trading at an approximate 20% plus discount to the broader market averages. And there were only 2 times in the history that healthcare has been trading at such a large discount to the market. One time was during the Hillary Clinton healthcare reform years in 93, 94. And the second time was in 2009 and 2010, when the last time the Democrats swept the elections, and you had Obamacare getting implemented in the United States. Both times when the sector was like trading at the 20% discount, this was an incredible buying opportunity. So I'm actually really confident that this big theme, presidential action in November, is a great buying opportunity. And I think the sector's relative valuation is pretty close to the bottom. And I think we're going to see a very important snapback here after the presidential election. Some of the more important long-term secular themes in our sector are, for example, M&A. I think our sector, there is a lot of acquisitions happening, especially of the more innovative, earlier stage companies in the biotech space, in the medtech space. I see an important resumption of that right after the election results as well, later this year. Another very important theme is the FDA supporting actually the innovation engine and the innovation in our sector by very, very fast regulatory approval. So that's an important theme as well, a very important positive theme. But the most important long-term secular trend is really that innovation inside healthcare is firing on all cylinders. And the innovation theme, this is really the reason why you want to be invested in the healthcare field. And this is why I'm so optimistic that healthcare will continue to outperform even for the next 10 or 25 years. Is really this hotbed of innovations. Some of the most exciting areas for innovations are, for example, gene therapy in the orphan disease space, oncology, like targeted therapies or cancer immunotherapy. It's another very hotbed of innovation. But you see innovation everywhere. You see it, like, for example, liquid biopsies in the diagnostic space. You see robotic surgery or continuous glucose monitoring or TAVR heart valves in the medtech sector. So all of the subsectors have tremendous innovations, and we are really excited about that. And if there wouldn't be a presidential election and no COVID-19, this is where I would spend probably 90% of my time talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's lots to consider, and it's a fascinating sector. But is it simple for I guess private investors, retail investors to get involved in? And I guess with those investors in mind, I mean, do you have any advice for viewers seeking to invest in biotech and pharmaceutical stocks? I mean, is there a sort of simple checklist you use, and how do you do it?
Well, our sector is really challenging for individual investors. You really need some scientific knowledge or a medical degree to correctly assess, all of the innovation inside our sector. It's very difficult for an individual investor to judge if the Mirati KRAS inhibitor clinical trial later this year will be successful. So I think there are a couple of things why you should not play actually some of these binary events in these clinical trials if you do not have the scientific expertise. And I think another important thing is do not chase themes or news items like COVID-19. It's like right now is not the time to buy COVID-19 vaccine companies. Right now is the time to sell it because they're highly valued. So don't play binary events and don't chase themes or news items. And I think the only recipe for success for an individual investors is when they see a company with a truly transformative blockbuster drug like a Vertex and invest in those, stick with those names because those cycles can be very, very long. And I think that's the only easy subpart of healthcare where you can be successful as an individual investor.
It's fantastic. Thank you very much, Sven Borho, co-manager of the Worldwide Healthcare Trust.
Thank you so much for having me.